A very good afternoon, and thanks for clicking on to the Wednesday edition of Vogan's European Outlook. Certainly, we look as if we are going to see a taste of spring over the next several days here as high pressure starts to regroup and re-strengthen down across more southerly latitudes. In the meantime, we are going to see the trough over the North Atlantic building and digging south somewhat, and that is going to allow the milder air to get picked up further east and projected northwards. Now, we've seen a high of 17 degrees in Paris this afternoon, and that is likely a sign of things to come as we go through, particularly into the early part of next week when we've got a system kind of skirting across Ireland and the northwest of the UK. Further south, ahead of the frontal system associated with that, we are going to see southwesterly winds, and with the aid of sunshine, we could see the temperatures rising at least into the mid-teens, possibly scraping 16, uh, maybe 17, with an outside possibility across the southeast. But on the whole, it looks as if for the next week or so at least, we are going to maintain a fairly mild Atlantic driven pattern with the Arctic Oscillation and the North Atlantic Oscillation in a positive mode. So certainly it looks as if we are going to leave the month of February and winter of 2016-17 on a fairly mild note. And it has been a winter where it's been a little bit back and forth. We've had some chilly weather to speak about, but on the grand scheme of things, I think we've been fairly let off fairly lightly this year once again. It certainly has been colder across the continent. But what is interesting, folks, is that as we go into the month of March, is it little too late, too little too late? That's the big question. But the stratosphere is indicating that we could have a blast potential surge of warmth across the Arctic region with the possibility of a colder reflection at 500 millibars for the UK and Western Europe. I'll show you that in just a second. But certainly this is the CFSV2 weeklies, the 500 millibar anomaly, and you can very clearly understand why we've got a positive AO, NAO. We've got the negative right over the North Pole, if you can see here, and we've got the positive over the UK extending to the western side of the Atlantic here. So it's a very, very positive signal at this moment in time. But as we skip through the next couple of weeks here, folks, we maintain, yes, a fairly positive NAO. Trough over Greenland corresponds quite nicely to a ridge over the western side of Europe. But as we start to push towards the period into the month of March, there is indications that we could start to flip the pattern around. Notice here by the time we get out to this would be the day 22 through 28. We've now starting to reverse the upper height field. Rather than having the negative over the Arctic, we're having the positive. Rather than having the positive over our latitude, the Atlantic extending into the UK, it's a negative. So there is some subtle indications that even though we push into the month of March, we may not be done just yet with regards to cold weather. Of course, the month of March can be rather changeable. We can see 20s in the month of March. We can also see minus 20s in the month of March. So it's a very, very wild month that can deliver uh, true winter weather, but also a real taste of summer as well. As we start to push towards day 29 through 35, this is into the heart of March, the first meteorological month of spring, of course. You notice here that we do have a negative Arctic oscillation and potentially a negative North Atlantic oscillation with a trough over the UK extending into the western half of Europe, ridge over Greenland. But again, we've seen this flirtation with a cold pattern throughout the course of the winter, and of course, we've been somewhat disappointed. So, we'll look at this with an element of caution. It may not happen, but there is some good indications here at least. There's some positive signs that we may still get a taste of winter before all is said and done. I want to try and show you this if I can. This is the initial um, 10 millibar temperature. Normally this in fact is actually 240 hours. Let's try and show you the initial here at 10 millibars, and it clearly shows you why we've not seen this cold pattern. Now, yeah, we've got an element of strat warming taking place. The displacement of the polar vortex is generally over Scandinavia, if you notice that at the moment, and that tends to reflect to a more negative height field over the North Atlantic, over Greenland, and it keeps our weather coming in from the west, from the ocean. But as we start to skip towards the 7 day at 10 millibars, the GFS, and always remember that this is a projection, this is a forecast. How many times have we seen this, got excited, and then been let down? But you notice here, by the time we get out to a week from now, it's indicating that we've got another surge of warming at 10 millibars from Asia across the pole. Now, yes, we've still got that the polar vortex, if you will, at 10 millibars centered over Scandinavia. We still have that negative across the North Atlantic, Greenland, indicating that we maintain this Atlantic-driven pattern through the remainder of February. Now, bear in mind that when you see this change, potential stratospheric warming, even when it occurs, if it occurs, it tends to be a 6 to 10 day lag before it responds to the 500 millibar pattern in the lower latitude, so in the mid latitude region. But this is interesting. As we go to 240 hours, so bear in mind, this is right at the end of February, so the response would be probably towards the second week of March. And remember what I showed you with CFSV2 indicating that we've got more positive across the north, negative across the UK, indicating a potentially colder pattern. Well, look at this here. We've got 10 days from now, the GFS has a pretty significant surge of warmth right over the top of the pole, and we've got the low, which indicates the core of the coldest air over the UK. So does that marry up with the CFS by the time we get out to the middle part of March? That is a possibility. The models are indicating something similar between the 10 millibar and the 500 millibar at least, but only time will tell. So at this moment in time, we're going to maintain a fairly mild ocean-driven pattern. Could see our first 16 or 17 in the coming days, and even some stormy weather across the northwest of the UK. But generally speaking, we're maintaining this Atlantic pattern for the foreseeable future, probably through the remainder of February. But there is indications that we may get something more interesting as we go towards the month of March. Bear in mind, March of 2013, after the warmest March on record for Scotland, March 2013 was the coolest in the UK in 50 years. We had deep snow with temperatures -11, -12. This kind of thing can deliver that if it is correct, and that is the big question. It's a big if. Hope you have a great Wednesday evening, and I'll be back in the next couple of days. Bye for now.